They're here now. Some of these people, some of these people are second, third, and fourth generation out there. Fourth generation. This property out there, after long and hard negotiation with MPC and this commission, came up with the East Sector Plan several years ago. That East Sector Plan specifically said that the Thorn Grove Midway Road property was not to be used for industrial parks, that the only good part or place for a industrial park in the East Sector was up north, not down here. And that plan, which this commission adopted, specifically said that the Midway Thorn Grove Pike area was not geologically or otherwise fit for industrial parks. That's what this commission said. That's what this commission said after MPC did the study. You all can sit down now. And yet they come in here now and MPC changes its mind and said, oh, yes, it's good for industrial development. We questioned that at MPC, and MPC voted us down on that. Fortunately, Mr. Mills, at least, was put in what he could for us, but it didn't seem to do any good. And I'd like to go back to what Mr. Edwards said, because it bothers me. It bothers me because this organization is the funding arm for the Development Corporation. The Development Corporation, we have asked for the records of the Development Corporation, including the contracts, which they say are confidential. Mike Moyers has opined, as this body's attorney and the county attorney, that indeed, based on the recent opinion out of the Middle Section Court of Appeals, that if they rely on public funding and taxpayers' money, then they are subject to the Open Records Act. We still do not have those documents. And I think this body needs to see those documents to see two things. Number one, how many people hold these options? How many different people? Are they all the Development Corporation? We don't know. And to answer the question about when or if these contracts options expire, we don't know. And we, as taxpayers, and you as a commission, have an absolute right under the Open Records Act to see these documents. And irregardless of whether one of those contracts says it is to be confidential between the Development Corporation and a property owner that signed it, that cannot come over the top of the Open Records Act. They cannot arbitrarily create a confidential non-disclosure when taxpayers' money is at stake. And let's get back to this. I heard Mr. Edwards say that the reason for this was because it would drive the price up. These are taxpayer owners out here. Is the commission joining with the Development Corporation to take some money from these people that they might be entitled to on a fair market value? There's one thing about an eminent domain. The law says you will get fair market value for your property. Fair market value. So my client's position is this: if the county wants this property, condemn it. Use the power of eminent domain insofar as you can, because at least then they won't have to negotiate this thing and worry about, quote, jacking up the price. They will get fair market value. The other thing that bothers me is what Mr. Edwards...
Hang on just a second. Let me stop you. Let's keep this to the zoning issues.
That's what I thought I was on, sir.
Well, I think when we got off on...
I'm responding to Mr. Edwards.
I understand that, but when we get off as the contracts, open records, I think the commission understands that, but we need to keep this this is a zoning request and to try to keep it to... I'm
simply responding to the question, to what Mr. Edwards did, and I think that my clients out here have a right for me to respond to what Mr. Edwards has said to this commission.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Grease.
Mr. Chairman.
Hang on, Commissioner Grease got his light on.
Mr. Chairman, I think you're exactly right. This is the question in front of us today: is this property appropriate for the zoning recommended by MPC, or is it not? Now, there are a lot of ancillary issues, but I don't think they're pertinent to whether this property should or should not be rezoned. Mr. Buuck, are you representing the property owners that want their property to be taken by
I told this commission I was representing the 8th District Preservation Association, the neighbors in that area that surround this area.
This is a point of clarification. So your clients are recommending that the property owners who have options have their property condemned by eminent domain. Is that your client's position?
I'm saying that if this body wants it, that would be, based on what Mr. Edwards said, the only fair way to do it.
I thought that was the position of your client. I was just trying to get that straight in my head before we go further. You're not advocating eminent domain on the property owners whose property is under contract.
I'm saying that if this body wants to do it, what the impression that Mr. Edwards left was that this was getting the lowest possible price for this property, and that is not doing justice to the property owners.
So your client's position is, I just asked for that question real quick.
I think I can say that on behalf of my clients, yes.
They advocate eminent domain. I just want to make sure that's
I didn't say I advocated eminent domain. I said if the property needs to be bought with taxpayers' money, eminent domain would assure fair market value rather than secretive negotiation. With regard to this area is rural. It's one of the fewest rural areas left in Knox County. The Planning Commission did not abide by this body's zoning ordinance at 6.31.01, which says that in order for there to be an amendment to the zoning regulation or the sector plan, that four items should be and must be met. The first and most important is that the proposed amendment shall be necessary because of substantially changed or changing conditions in the area or zones affected or in the county generally. There was no showing at MPC. There is no showing in the record before this body of any such change which would necessitate an amendment. That's strong language. It's your amendment, or it's yours. It's ours. It's our ordinance, and you have to abide by it, as I'm sure you will. B, the proposed amendment shall be consistent with the intent and purposes of this resolution, and that's the zoning resolution, which includes a sector plan. Nothing that is proposed today is consistent with that sector plan or the entirety of this ordinance. C, the proposed ordinance shall not adversely affect any other part of the county, nor shall any direct or indirect adverse effects result from such an amendment. That's kind of broad, but I see nothing before this body, and I saw nothing before MPC with regard to that requirement. The proposed amendment shall be consistent with and not in conflict with the general plan of Knoxville and Knox County, including any of its elements, major road plan, land use plan, community facility plans, and others, including the East Sector Plan. If this body votes against to change this East Sector Plan after it was negotiated with the citizens out there, and it says this is one of the last rural areas and that it should be a gateway. Those words are in here, that the Midway Road area should be a gateway to all of Knoxville and should be very like only business or office and commercial on the east side, which is already commercial and in the city. This time to go ahead and change it is, I would respectfully say, based on what's before this body, would be arbitrary and capricious and subject to being overturned by a Chancery Court of Knox County. I would ask at this time that you simply abide by this rural area. Let's not change it. There was a rural area that I dealt with, and I hear talks of 2,000 and 3,000 square foot buildings over here from Mr. Edwards. I know of one because I was involved in a lawsuit, the John Deere plant, which got plunked right into the middle of an agricultural residential area up in Jefferson City. And we got that thing taken care of, and they had to buy all the property around it at a high dollar because 24 hours a day that industrial site had diesel trucks coming in and out on these little roads coming off the interstate. And Jake breaks going 24 hours a day, ruining the health of these people. That's what will happen to this rural area if this gets zoned the way it's requested today. Thank you for your time.